So I don't know if you heard, there's this little movie coming out based on this video game called Mario. And I wanted to review the original movie that you could see I only have here on DVD. Now this DVD like came out in the late 90s and it's never been reprinted since, from what I understand. And yeah, there's no Blu-ray of this movie, so this is my only way to watch it. And it looked like ass. This DVD looked like ass. But this is how I had to view this movie so I could talk about it. If you've never heard of this movie, it's kind of an interesting movie because the production history of this movie is insane. So basically, you know, late 80s, late 90s, and early 90s, Mario and Nintendo were on top of the world. There wasn't a lot of game competitors out there. They were starting to come in there. You know, there was stuff out there. But really, it just was Nintendo back in the day. And so, you know, like they made this movie that they signed some very interesting license deals. First of all, the DVD is put out by Disney. They have the whole media rights to this movie. How weird is that? This is not a Disney movie, but they have the whole media rights. And then the movie also is was a movie that Nintendo put out there and put into licensing. This is something they would never do again, but they gave them complete creative control to do whatever the hell they wanted with this movie. So you're essentially they thought that if this movie came out and did any whatever it was, good or bad, it wouldn't be enough to damage the Mario brand. And here we are. This movie came out in 1993. It's now 2023, and people are super excited about a new Mario movie. So they were right. The Mario brand was so big that this movie could not damage it, and that's interesting. But it does bring into question what's wrong with this movie. And if you know the production history of this movie, they had no idea what to do with this movie. And that's just because if you look at the original Mario games, nowadays Mario games have a little bit more story and you could probably do a little bit more, especially if you're doing animated. That's why people are excited about this new one. But back in the day, it was just literally just jump, stop, jump, kill that dude. You know, it wasn't very complicated. It was super simple gameplay. Me, someone who sucks at video games, has played like the original Mario games and like some of those NES classics that they came out with a few years ago and things like that. I suck at video games, but I'm able to play that and do it successfully because it's so simple. And so like that's how simple this stuff is. And they really couldn't adapt this into a movie very well. So they kind of just had multiple ideas. They had multiple scripts thrown around. None of them came together. Got to the point where Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo, who were the stars of this movie, started getting drunk on set because they kept being handed new pages of scripts every day, and they just stopped caring. And then they kind of just went through the days like that. And finally, the movie came out and it flopped. It had a pretty decent actually opening weekend, but after that, it had a major drop off, and this movie did not do great because of the fact that simply this is a bad movie that is nothing like the video game, but is also I'd seen this movie before, but I was watching it last night. It was so hard to follow at points. I couldn't even understand what the shit was happening half the time. The plot made no sense. The characters would constantly just do things, and you're like, all right. It was laughably bad though. Like if you want to watch a movie that's so bad it's good, here you go. This movie's awesome for that. It is laughably bad. The script writing, the dialogue, the plot. Dennis Hopper is amazing in this movie. He gives one of the best so bad it's good performances I've ever seen from a villain as King Koopa in this movie. And the Dinopolis is very interesting actually because it's really well designed, like the makeup and stuff, and it's really cool, but it makes no sense. It's also weird and bizarre. It's like, why is this in a Mario movie? And like, there just is no association to the source material here. This movie is a nightmare of a movie, and if you really really like So Bad It's Good movies. This is an awesome movie. It's one of the it's oh this is an awful movie. But you know what's interesting about this movie is now it's 30 years old. There's people who are nostalgic for it, and there's also people who have such a strong following for this movie that they work to restore the extended cut. I mean, we're never gonna see that get released physically, but eventually we may get the extended cut restored and released online somewhere, probably by illegal means, but you know, I'm just saying, there's a huge following for this movie. That's why I always say Disney should, since they have the whole media rights, put this out on Blu-ray at some point. It's on Blu-ray overseas, but yeah, this is just a crazy movie. And honestly, if you've never seen this movie and you really like So Bad It's Good movies, or you're just curious about it, watch it because you won't have a bad time. You will actually have a great time watching this, and that is just for sure.